أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The verses that we've been reciting for the last 6 or 7 nights are from Surah Fajr, the last 4 verses, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the satisfied soul to return to his Lord in the state pleasing and well pleased, enter among the servants of Allah, and enter into the paradise. We've been talking about the mission of Imam Hussein and the messages of Ashura. We've discussed some of the ethical lessons that we can derive from the events that took place almost 1400 years ago, and the teachings that Imam Hussein has left behind. Among the things that we have discussed thus far, we talked about Isar, preferring others over oneself. We talked about the tawakkul and complete reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and many other lessons that were discussed in the earlier nights. Today, we want to focus on that lesson that Imam repeated throughout his journey. From the time that he exited Medina, when he went to bid farewell onto the grave of his grandfather, he spoke and he discussed and he said as to what is he about to do. And then when he gave the khutbah speaking to his brother Muhammad Hanafiya, and then even when he was facing the enemies in the battlefield, and also at the last moment of his life, the message that Imam was continuously repeating was the message that I love Amr bil Maruf, and I want to perform Amr bil Maruf, and I want to forbid what is evil. In the khutbah that Imam gave when he was leaving Medina, he says, "Uridu an a'mura bil ma'ruf wa anha anil munkar." I want your attention on the word urid. Urid in Arabic comes from irada. Irada means intention. The stronger the conviction and the intention is, the stronger the result would be. You try your best. Give it more than 100% if you have to. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But you have not let down, or you have not done anything less than what was required from you. This is why we see that Imam, when he says, "Uridu an a'mura bil ma'ruf," I want to perform Amr bil Maruf, enjoin what is good. Wa anha anil munkar, and forbid what is evil. This is the conviction of Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. This is the intention of Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. For example, Quran exhorts on numerous occasions, says, stand in the masjid that has been established on the piety. Ussisa ala taqwa. It is better for you to stand in such a masjid. We ask as to why it is better for us to stand in such a masjid. Quran will reply by saying, fihi rijalun. It has people, yuhibbuna an yatatahharu, who love to be purified. It's exhorting us. When they're exhorting in this type of tone, is exhorting us and advising us, then you go ahead and you perform this thing. We're also aware of the tone that Quran uses when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about His intention and His irada. The ayat of Tathir, chapter 33, verse 33, it says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. That indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to. At one point you and I wish for something and we do the irada. We make the intention. What is our intention? It sometimes succeeds and sometimes it doesn't succeed. But when Allah making the intention, when Allah is promising the irada is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do you think there will be any lapses in it? For example, I wish to accomplish something. I made an intention to do something. My accomplishment was to go ahead and convey the message tonight to whatever extent that I could. But I might have failed. Why? Because delivery was not good, or the words that came out were not appropriate, or were not mafhoom, were not conveying the message correctly. All of those things could be part of it. But when Allah wants to do something, do you think there are going to be any lapses in it? No. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهِ. Indeed, Allah wishes and desires. It's not that you and I are wishing or desiring. No. It's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes and desires. The same thing when He has said in Quran that فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا. Stand in the masjid. And this particular masjid, we say, what is the khasiyat? What is the special thing about this masjid? He said, فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا. It holds those individuals who love to be purified. So that's an incentive for us. Because it already has those people who wants to be purified, you go ahead and stand in this masjid. Why? This masjid is built on the concept of taqwa and piety, coming right out of the ayat of Quran. And that's why there's so many rewards that are associated with performing namaz and coming to the masjid on regular basis. Alhamdulillah, during the month of Muharram, during Ramadan, we see larger number of people coming and visiting the Imam Bargas and the masajid, which is good. But this masjid, or any masjid for that matter, should not be left unattended throughout the year. Why? Among the things that will be complaining on the day of judgment is a masjid. We'll be complaining that I was there, yet people stranded me. People didn't come and pray inside the masjid. Among the things that Masumeen have guaranteed, that when you perform a 2-rakat namaz inside a masjid, regardless, because all of us, nobody can claim that I pray and in 2-rakat namaz, I pray with complete sincerity, thinking only about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very difficult. So there's always some defects in our salat. Whenever there's a defect, even Masumeen are making dua in regards to when they finish salat, they make dua, oh Allah, if there was any naqs in my salat, if there was any defect in my salat, please look over it. So when Masum is making such a dua, then definitely you and I, when we pray, there are defects. He says, regardless of all the defects that you have in your prayer, as long as you're praying inside the masjid, those defects are overlooked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one guarantee. Guarantee of praying in the masjid is that your salat is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then rewards that are associated, that if there are 10 people in the jamaat, in the congregation, there's no way of calculating how much reward there is for each individual. Sometimes we take these ahadith for granted, saying that, reward is become so cheap that it is being dispersed like this in buckets and whatnot. No, don't take these ahadith for granted. These are words of Masumeen. He said, if there are 10 people standing in a jamaat, there's no way of comprehending the reward for each individual in this jamaat. And I gave this example once, that what is in this number 10? Why didn't Allah say, or the Rasul said, or the Masum say 11 for example, or 9 for example? Why 10? So one thing comes to mind, that imagine if a person only had one finger, how much could he do? Imagine someone who only had, out of the 10, only one finger. Very little that this person can do. If he had 2, he may be able to hold something. If he had 3, he might be able to write something. If he had 4, he might be able to pull something. If he had 5 fingers, he might be able to grab something. And then if he had the rest of the 5 on the other hand, there's no limitation to what this person can or cannot do. Right? Has anyone ever complained, I wish I had more than 10 fingers? Oh, if I had more fingers, I would have gotten so-and-so job. I got turned down by so-and-so company because I only have 10 fingers. No. 10 is maximum what Allah has given to you. He designed it this way. So we understand that having these 10 fingers, there's no limitation to what you and I can or cannot do. That we never even wish for having more than this, because this is the perfect way. Tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqeen. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed is the most beautiful form. Likewise, it says there's no limitation to the reward for the individuals if they reach 10 people in the Salatul Jamaat. So from this we understand that at least once a week, twice a week, when the Salat is being performed, we make sure that we pay a visit to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's the irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You and I can also make intentions and live up to those intentions. But then again, sometimes when we make intentions, our intentions are not as strong. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making an intention, when Allah is saying, Innama yuridullah, then indeed Allah wishes to purify you, oh, the people of the house. Right away, you look at the tafasir, you will find in some tafasir it says that Ahlul Bayt is referring towards the daughter of Rasulullah, son-in-law of Rasulullah, and Hasanain for that matter. Some tafasir will say it is referring towards the wives of Rasulullah as well. But even those tafasir which are mentioning the wives, they also include Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Janab Fatima. They said those are also included. So you'll find different tafsir and different interpretations. But all of them include Ali, Fatima, and Hassanan to be part of Ahlul Bayt. Nobody denies from that fact. Although you can debate as far as the wording is concerned. It says, Innama yuridullah liyudhiba ankum. Those who are familiar with the Arabic language or have studied some grammar, they know the word ankum. The word kum is used for male, plural for male. For example, anka, ankuma, and ankum. There's singular form, there's dual, and then there's jama, there's the plural. Ankum is referring towards males. So in Arabic, the law says, if predominantly they're males, among them are few women, the pronoun that will be used is for males. So for example, if there were 10 men and there were 2 or 3 women in it, the pronoun that will be used in Arabic will be masculine. That is the qanun, that is the grammatical law. But if it was the other way around, if there were more ladies than men, it will be ankunna. It will be the feminine pronoun that will be used. But over here in this particular ayat, we say it's Ahlul Bayt, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein. Because there are 3 males and 1 lady, Allah used the pronoun for males, ankum. O Ahlul Bayt, Allah wants, it's His irada to remove any type of impurity. But these people come and they say, well, you know, this ayat also includes the wives. We say, fine. But prove it through the ayat of Quran. Wives, if you include all of the wives, Rasulullah had 11. At one time he had 9, but altogether 11 wives. 11 of them are female. The sigha, the pronoun that should have been used, had to be ankunna. We see that that's not the case. But still, if those people want to include the wives in there, that is fine. Although it is proven through grammar and otherwise. But all in all, everybody includes Ahlul Bayt, wives, and the children as well. Over here is the irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The point that I wanted to derive, this came in between as jumla mu'taraza, as a tangent, but the point that I wanted to derive is that it's the conviction and the intention of Allah to remove any type of impurity. If Allah is guaranteeing that this individual, that individual, this lady, and these kids have no impurity, none whatsoever, and calling them to be pure of any type of impurity, then who tomorrow stands up against these individuals and says that Hussein committed a mistake? Or denies Janab Sayyida her right when she's asking and saying that this is my right and this belongs to me. They ask her, bring witnesses if you could. She brings her sons as the witness. They said, no, your sons cannot be used as the witness. The same children were used to defend Islam. When Mubahala took place, Rasulullah goes and performs this Mubahala. Who has he taken with himself? Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. When it comes to defend Islam, Hassan and Hussein are okay to be used. But when it comes for Janab Sayyid to ask her and demand her rights, Imam Hassan and Hussein, their witness could not be, their testimony could not be validated at this point. So this is where we understand that what Yazid did when he stood up against Imam, first of all, he's challenging this ayat of Quran. But I say, well, Yazid doesn't really care for Quran, because he had said already, La'ibat Hashim bil mulke, Hashim, Banu Hashim were playing with the government. Wala khabaraja, wala wahyun nazal. There's no news that came, there's no revelation that ever came. In this regard, Yazid is actually worse than Shaitan. Why? You say, how do you compare? There are still people today who defend Yazid. My topic is Amr bil Maruf, and I'll come back to it, and I will join it with it. Yazid in this regard is actually worse than Shaitan. And those who are Yazidi are worse than any other creation, or at least Christians for this matter. Why? Because when Rasulullah went with his family to debate with the Christians, in the Christians of Najran, in the event of Mubahala, when these Christians told their leader, the Rasul, Prophet Muhammad has come with his daughter, with his son-in-law and 2 kids, he said, don't debate with him. Don't debate with him. They backed away. They backed down. Seeing that Prophet has brought his family, they backed away. Yazid, Umar Asad, they see that Hussein has brought his family, they're not backing down. They're still fighting. So the Yazidis are worse than Christians and other nations, and Yazid is worse than Shaitan even. Why? Because he doesn't believe that Quran was revealed. He doesn't believe that Rasulullah was the Prophet. Altogether, he has problem understanding even if there's a God or not. Whereas Shaitan believes in all of these 3 things. Shaitan believes that there's God. Shaitan believes that there are prophets. Shaitan believes that there's a day of judgment. Why? Through Quran. Ayat of Quran prove this. Shaitan says, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. Allah said, oh Shaitan, perform sajda in front of Adam. He said, you have created me with fire and created him with clay. You have created. So he believes in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I worship you only. I'm not going to worship anyone else. So he believes in the rububiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only in the khilqat and the creation, but he also believes that there's only one God. So he believes in the wahdani. And I'm not being devil's advocate for Shaitan over here, but just trying to prove as to how Shaitan's beliefs are better than the beliefs of Yazid for that matter. And still today, people are claiming and defending Yazid by calling him, may God be pleased with him. He said, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. This shows that Shaitan believes that Allah has created him and Allah has created everything else. Second point in regards to Nubuwwat. Shaitan said, oh Allah, I will misguide everyone. لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ. I will misguide everyone. Except those, إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Except those of your servants who are mukhlis. Quran refers to mukhlisin as the anbiya. He said, I'm able to misguide every single person, but I will not be able to penetrate in the hearts of the prophets. That's something that Shaitan cannot do. So that's why he's claiming that there's prophets. And then when Allah said, Ukhruj, leave, get out of here, he said, Allah, give me respite. Ila yawmi yub'athun. Give me respite until the day of judgment. So he believes in the day of judgment as well. All 3 of these are the ayat of Quran. Shaitan believes in the khilqat. The creator is Allah. He believes that the prophets, he cannot penetrate and misguide them. And he believes that there is a day of judgment. From here we understand that Yazid is even worse than Shaitan. And Yazidis are actually worse than the Christians and the other religions that exist. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Imam, one of the messages of Ashura is Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. That I want to reform the society and I want to perform what is known as Amr al Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. Over here, when Imam alayhi salatu wasalam rose and he did this revolution, we see that Yazid lived and Imam died. Imam was martyred. Imam was killed. Banu Umayyah remained. Looking at it, people might say that, Banu Umayyah were successful. But today, when you look at it after so many years, there's no sign of Banu Umayyah. There's no sign of Yazid. We don't even know where he's buried. But the message of Hussein is still here. This is where we need to understand that the results of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar are not always, automatically they'll come right away. You might have to give it some time. In case of Imam Hussein, he was not looking for the results right away. He said, my duty, my irada, my intention is to perform Amr Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Wama alayna illa al-balagh. Prophets, they were saying it all along. Whatever is our duty is to go ahead and give the message. It's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that whose hearts turn towards us. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam rose, did qiyam. Evil didn't vanish, although Imam was martyred. But we understand from here that Imam was not trying to prove this point that it will happen overnight. Rather, this revolution took time. And then later on, people realized that who was wrong and who was correct. So therefore, we see that Maktab Hussein has prevailed. Same thing is with Muawiyah. The people said, well, they still call him to be radiyallahu anhu. We see that there's no sign of his grave. We see that there's no sign of his army. We see that there's no sign of Banu Umayyah. Whereas those who are standing up against, he was standing up against Amirul Mu'mineen. We see how Najaf is today established. Millions and millions of people go for the ziyarat of Amirul Mu'mineen and Imam Hussein. If this is not the biggest proof that who was on the right and who was wrong, and still people are calling and giving the name of Ali and Muawiyah in the same sentence by calling this person to be radiyallahu anhu and that person to be also radiyallahu anhu, there must be something wrong. How can you put both of them in the same sentence and say that may Allah be pleased with this and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with that individual as well? Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So you got to cultivate the seed today and then you got to wait. You can't say, well, I've tried my best and nothing is happening. No. You got to cultivate the seed today. And then like Imam Hussein did, wait for the results to come. If your intention and your irada, your conviction was strong, you will get the result as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised. So we see that Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar is not only the duty of mankind and humans only, but even the animals are also part of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Again, I'll give you proofs through Quran. In Surah Naml, the story of Hazrat Sulaiman and the animals. Well, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him the power to speak and communicate with the animals. It says in Surah وَحُشِرَ لِسُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ that the assembly was set. All of the jinns and the animals and the insan, they were all standing in the assembly. But there was one animal that was missing. Illa Hudhud. That hudhud, that hupu, that animal, that bird was missing. And so right away, Suleiman turns around and says, he better have a good explanation why he's missing from the assembly. And so he waited. When the bird arrived, he said, if you don't have an explanation, I will definitely punish you. He said, no, I have an explanation. I was flying over this mulk, this land, and I saw that a lady is the ruler. and I saw that people were worshipping sun instead of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole story is mentioned in Surah Naml. That I saw that people were worshipping sun where they should have been worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I couldn't do anything. So as Nahi anil Munkar, I'm informing you to go ahead and do something about it. A bird is able to see that the idol worshipping or worshipping someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wrong. And it is his duty to perform Nahi anil Munkar over here. He comes and informs Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi wasalam. And then the rest of the story, you all know that how Hazrat Sulaiman sends a letter, and then, he asks one of the people in his court to bring the throne of Bilqis before they arrive, and all that stuff that happens. But here, point is, even a bird realizes that worshipping someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is against the teachings and against wahdaniyat of Allah, and he informs someone who is able to implement and who's able to bring people into worshipping one God. Again, in the same chapter, we hear the story of the ants, that when the army of Hazrat Sulaiman was marching, the ants and the leader of the ants said, Ya ayyuhan namal, udkhulu masakinakum. Oh, the fellow ants, enter your dwellings. La yahtimannakum Sulaiman wa junudahu wa hum la yash'urun. Lest Sulaiman and his army crushes you. Because they won't be able to see us. We're so tiny. They'll march over us and we'll be destructive. So get into your dwellings. Here, an ant is seeing there's danger ahead. Not just keeping this to himself, rather informing every other ant that is there to get in the dwelling, get in a safe place, lest you're killed. And the army of Suleiman will not even realize that they have crushed you underneath. Again, this is what? Is stopping someone from danger. An ant is able to understand that there's a danger that lies ahead, and it stops people from doing it. It's a logical thing, and inshallah we will give you some logical points as well as to how Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar is not only logical, but it is also a natural phenomenon. Salawat Diji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Our religion is a living faith, living religion. And if we don't stand up against things that are normal, not normal, then we are considered to be dead. Hadith says, فَهُوَ مَيِّتٌ بَيْنَ الْأَحْيَاءِ. He might be alive. You might see him running, walking around. But هُوَ مَيِّتٌ بَيْنَ الْأَحْيَاءِ. He's like dead among the people who are alive. Hadith does not even consider an individual alive as long as they don't take the opportunity when it is posed in front of them to go ahead and perform Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. Problem that arises a lot of time is that when we, living in this part of the world, try to convince someone from doing something or stop someone from doing something, right away we fear the answer will come, it's none of your business. Don't butt into my business. Don't put your nose into what I want to do. We fear this sort of reply would come from this individual. Then that's fine. There are conditions that are mentioned. If it's not to that seriousness, then there are conditions that are mentioned for you. There are levels of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. There are conditions of it and there are manners of it. If you know that there's zero probability of any sort of effect, then it's no longer wajib upon you. But it's still, if you know that there might be some sort of effect, this still is a wajib upon you. Just like all the other wajibat. In fact, to the extent that the ahadith say that Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar is actually more wajib than any other wajib. Why? Tuqamu bihal fara'id. With this, all the other fara'id and all the other wajibat are standing. If this was not practiced, all the other wajibat will cease to exist. We see that tarbiyat of children as well is part of Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. When the mothers are saying to the kids, don't do this. What is that? That's Nahi anil Munkar. Don't do that. Don't walk over there. Don't see them. Don't be friends with them. What are these things? This is Nahi anil Munkar. Our parents are doing this all the time. Seems that parents are mostly doing Nahi anil Munkar than they're doing Amr bil Maruf. Because they're stopping us from everything that we're doing, they're stopping us, right? So they're doing nahi and munkar all the time. But then sometimes they also say, yes, do this. They encourage you, yes, why don't you do this? And all of those things, and then part of Amr bil Maruf. So it's part of the tarbiyat as well. A lot of people say, Moulana, my child doesn't pray. How do I do Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar at this point? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do Amr bil Maruf. He did not say how or what means and tools. By any means that you could. Sometimes your tongue does not have the ability to convince your children. Then you use someone whom these children follow. Maybe a teacher, maybe an instructor, maybe a coach on their team that they look up to, maybe an elder brother that they look up to. And it's the case with every single one of us. At least I can give my personal example that if I try to tell one of my family members something, they might not listen to me at any time. But when I tell their friends to tell them, right away you'll see that thing takes place. I won't name who and what, but it happens. And it comes with age, especially when it comes with age. If I try to tell someone older than me to go ahead and do something, or to go ahead and buy this is very good for you, they say, no, let's not spend money for that. I'll tell one of their friends, advise them to go get that thing because it's really useful for them. Right away, the next day they'll tell me, we have to get that. We have to get that. So sometimes you need to maybe ask someone else to exhort, someone else to advise them, and that's how they come on the track, and that's how they will be able to follow what you're saying. But then, Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar, when you grade someone's paper and you give them 100% marks, this is where you should advise them. But if you have failed someone in the exam, and then you put an advice over there, they're not going to listen. So take an opportunity when you have done good, when you have given something. For example, if you have given a gift to your child, maybe on their birthday, when you have bought maybe, let's say, earrings to your daughter, this is the time to do Amr bil Maruf, Nahi anil Munkar. Why? They're receptive at that time. They have just received something from you, they're all ears to you at this moment. They will make sure that they'll listen to you, and also on top of that, guaranteed they will follow that as well. Salawat bhiji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So here we see that the duty of Anbiya were two things. وَاشْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتِ أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاشْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتِ. That even when Hazrat Adam ﷺ was sent, he was offered three things. And so Amr bil Maruf is also logical and proven through aql. The examples that I gave you. So the role of aql is very important in our religion. Hazrat Adam, when he was sent, he was given three things. But he could only choose one of the three. Haya, modesty, aql, and deen, religion. But he said you can only take one of the three. The rest of the two must come back. So angels brought these three things to Hazrat Adam. Now Hazrat Adam is at this juncture, he said, what should I pick? Imagine you're given these three things and you have to pick one of the three. He said, if I pick religion, which is very dear to me, then people will call me behaya, have no modesty, and be'aql. Likewise, if I pick modesty, they'll call me ladeen, doesn't have any religion. So he was at this thinking about it, and then he made his mind. He said, I want to choose aql. When he said, I want to choose aql, the angel said to Haya and Deen, come back with me. But Haya and Deen replied by saying, no, wherever there's aql, there will be modesty and there will be religion. So Adam has made a great choice by choosing aql, because wherever there's aql, there will be religion there and there will be modesty over there as well. So therefore, wherever you see there's no ladiniyat, wherever you see there's ladiniyat, there's no religion, let it be known that there's no aql either. And wherever you see anyone immodest, there's also aql which is failing and absent over there. So there are two things that if you saw danger right away, aqli liha, from the intellectual perspective, you will go ahead and do amr bil maruf. For example, God forbid if there was fire over here. and you did not do anything, everybody in the world will blame you. It was your duty to do Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar by saving yourself and the rest of the people. It's only logical over here. And that's the same message which prophets have brought in. U'budullah washtanibut taghut. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stay away from shaitan. Mu'mineen and mu'minat are awliya of one another when it comes to Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. How? Quran says, we are guardians of one another. Unfortunately, we have distanced ourselves so much. If you look at the traditions, they're actually calling mu'mineen and mu'minat to be body parts of one another. To the extent that if one body part is hurting, the other one is aware of it. But unfortunately, the case in our communities is that people are suffering. We don't even know who's suffering and who is in need of help. So that core concept is missing from over there. Quran says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Mu'mineen and mu'minat are guardians of one another. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. They advise one another for Amr bil Maruf, and they advise one another from staying away from that which is evil. It is the sifat of munafiqeen. It says, al-munafiquna wal-munafiqat. What do they do? What do they do? يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمُنْكَرِ. They exhort each other for evil. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ. And they stop one another from doing good things. Right away, if you see something like that is happening, it is one of the most important wajibat, and that's what Imam Hussain ﷺ is doing. One of the messages, direct message from Karbala and Ashura that we receive is the exhortations from Imam ﷺ every step of the way that Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. He's sitting on the grave of his grandfather. He said, Allahumma inni ahabbu Amr bil Maruf wa akrahul munkar. Ahabbul Maruf wa akrahul munkar. Indeed, O Allah, I love Ma'ruf and I hate and I abhor Munkar. We see over here that when you want to stop someone from doing something, and again going back to the tarbiyat of awlad as well, when you want to stop someone from doing something, and usually the case is we're not encouraging, we want to stop, especially when it comes to the kids, we want to stop them from doing something. How do we do this? How do we do that? When you stop someone from doing something, you gotta give them an alternative. There should be an alternative before you stop someone from doing something. Again, looking at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Hawa, what is it? He says, Kula minha ragadan haythu shi'tuma. O Adam and Eve, eat whatever you want to. So he has given them an alternative first. And then he says, وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذَا الشَّجَرَةِ. But do not come close to this هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Do not come close to this tree. But had already given them a choice. Eat whatever you want to. All of this is for you. Had given them a chance and opportunity and all the choices in the world, and then says, don't eat this. Why are you going to go ahead and eat that? There's so many halal things for you, yet we still follow, and someone says, this is halal, brother, and right away we're going to go ahead and take that. Not going in deep and finding out what is halal and what is not halal. Happens for many times. You cannot take the word of a non-Muslim if he says this is halal. You got to make sure that there's zabiha as well. Halal just does not cut it. It's got to be zabiha halal in order for it to be okay for you to consume. Why? Because luqmatul haram yubinu fid durriya. Every haram morsel will have its effect, long-lasting effects, not just in your body, but also in the zurriyat and the progeny to come after you. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So before you want children to listen to you, if you say don't listen to so-and-so, make sure that you have given them an alternative. Listen to this. Give them and then again, don't wait for this to happen overnight. Learn from Imam Hussain. People did not realize that Imam was correct what he was doing. Nor did they realize after the death of Imam. Imam died, he was martyred, his family members were killed. They didn't realize that. They realized it many, many, many years later. But at least Yazid realized it right away. And that was the reason in his court, only after a few weeks, he was saying, I didn't do it. It was Ibn Ziyad who went against my orders and commands. I only asked him to bring Hussein. I didn't ask him to kill. This shows you the haqqaniyat and the reality and the truthfulness in what Imam ﷺ was doing. I'll try to bring it as quickly to conclusion that Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar sometimes it's general for everyone and sometimes it's specific. It might not be our duty. For example, if you're driving down a road and you see one person driving wrong way, everybody that is driving starts honking, right? Just one person has come on the wrong side of the road. Everybody starts honking. Here it's a general law. You all have to exhort this person from what he's doing wrong. Why? Because he'll end up getting hurt and he'll hurt everyone else as well. But over here we see that sometimes it is specific. That this person who's doing wrong, breaking the lights, and on purpose going the wrong way. Here you cannot do much. Here an official has to come up and stop this person and even penalize them. So sometimes Amr bil Maruf is general for everyone. Sometimes it's specific for everyone, for only a few people. And that's why Imam ﷺ said, Allahumma wa inni ahabbul maruf wa akrahul munkar. Imam understands that when he gave the last khutbah, that he saw that Yazid, what he was doing. He said Yazid has considered halal of Allah into haram. He has broken the sunnah of Rasulullah. And whatever was haram, he's making that to be halal. He's going against all of those teachings. And this is therefore, it might not be duty of all of you, but at least specifically, it is my duty to stand up and confront him. I will not remain quiet, and this is something which I have to do. So Imam's irada and intention and conviction was strong from the very first day. And not just Imams. This shows us the people that Imam had brought with him, their conviction as well. The night of Ashura, Imam ﷺ has gathered his companions and the youth and the men of Banu Hashim. And this is where Imam is telling everyone that tomorrow, everyone will face martyrdom. He goes through the list and the names of every individual, but there's one name is missing from there. One name that was missing, the child, Hazrat Qasim. He goes and he starts crying. Imam says, why are you crying, oh my son? He said, Mawla, you named everyone will be martyred tomorrow, but you forgot to mention my name. This is the conviction and the intention. He said, oh Mawla, am I not going to be facing martyrdom tomorrow? Imam tested the boy. He said, how is maut and death in front of you? He said, ahla min al-asal. It is sweeter than honey in front of me. That's how I face death. Imam says, not only that you will be martyred, but younger brother Ali Asghar will also be martyred tomorrow. Right away, Qasim could not control his anger. He said, Mawla, will they, ayasiluna ala al-khayam, will they reach the tents? Imam said, no, they will not reach the tents until as long as we are alive. And this is where the next morning, when everybody had given their shahada, the companions had gone towards martyrdom, the turn came for the Jawanan Banu Hashim. One after another, everybody was going. Qasim comes to Imam, says, Mawla, give me the permission to go ahead and sacrifice myself onto you. Imam says, how can I let you go? You're the last sign of my deceased brother. This is where Imam kept denying him. Then Qasim thought to himself that before the death, my father had given me a ta'weez. He brings the ta'weez and he said to him that open this ta'weez whenever you are in need. He brings the ta'weez and he brings it to Imam Hussein. What does the ta'weez say in it? Tawi says that, oh my son, help my brother, help your uncle. And this is where Imam Hussein cannot deny anymore. He has to let go of Qasim. Then he asks Qasim, and he makes him, prepares him, he gets him ready, he puts on amama on his head, the way you would put on amama on the deceased when a person has died. He lets the two ends loose of the amama, the way it shows that those people who have died. Imam, in other words, is putting on the kafan on Hazrat Qasim. Qasim goes towards the battlefield. He introduces himself that I'm the son of Hassan al-Mushtaba. If you don't know me, recognize me. He fights. One narration says he killed 35 of them. And then there was a person by the name Umar Saad Azadi. He said, indeed, I will strike a blow onto this young man. He said, the person Hamid ibn Muslim said, do you not think that this army is enough to kill him? He said, yes, the army is enough to kill him, but I want to strike a blow to this boy. And he says, when this boy came close to him, he struck a blow on his head, and this is where the head was separated. Imam Hassan's son Qasim is coming down onto the ground, and he comes down onto the ground. He calls upon his uncle, Ya Amma Adrikni, oh my uncle, come for my help. This is where Imam Hussein, like an eagle hunting for a prey, comes towards the Maqtal, wants to rescue. He says Umar Saad Azdi was still standing there. Imam strikes a blow to him. He calls upon his friends to come for his help. When they all came with their horses, in this moment, all the horses trampled the body of Hazrat Qasim. When the dust cleared up, Imam Hussein picked up Qasim's body. Hamid says that when Imam picked up this young boy who was shorter than Imam Hussein, when he had come to the battlefield, but because of the trampling, his body had stretched so much that when Imam was holding him chest by chest, his feet were dragging onto the land. And Imam was saying, oh my nephew, how sad it is, how unfortunate is your uncle that you called him for help and I was not able to help you. Allah lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Matam Hussein.